The numbers blinked back at Captain Isla Voss. They were steady. They were unforgiving. Food, 63 days. Water, 90. Fuel, 40 jumps. The Bridge of Hope's anchor smelled of burnt coffee and recycled air, a familiar blend that did nothing to calm her. She stared at the flickering status screen, her thumb tapping a 4-beat rhythm against her thigh. Less than 2 months to find a world that would take them. A world not already claimed by someone with more guns or older treaties or a deeper grudge. Behind her, Leo Parrish's pocket tool clicked open. Clicked closed. Open. Closed. The deck plates vibrated with the low, steady hum of the ship's primary power source. It was a bass note felt in the teeth. Isla did not turn around. Report. The void reactor containment is stable. Leo's voice carried the edge of someone staring at diagnostics too long. But the monitoring system has an issue. She waited. A frequency drift, he continued, the tool clicking again. 0.3% over the last 6 hours. It's a small deviation in the energy signature, but it will need recalibration within 12 hours. Maybe 10 if the drift accelerates. I recommend we do it before entering Darkweave space. Isla absorbed that. She trusted Leo's instincts. He knew the vessel's pulse better than anyone. He had crawled through its guts for 2 years and learned every junction. Fyra pulsed from the corner of the bridge. The silver body of the Ryle was dim today. Her internal lights were reduced to a soft amber glow. She projected an image into the captain's mind, a distant star system with 3 habitable planets, blue-green atmospheres, water, land, air. She then extended a long, flexible limb toward Isla. The pseudopod was cool and smooth like polished silver. It did not quite touch. Isla recognized the star system immediately. The ache settled behind her ribs, familiar and heavy. That is the Ryle homeworld, Fyra. A wash of affirmation came back. Sadness, loss. It is abandoned now. The Mammoth salted the crust. She recalled the histories. A total ecosystem collapse. They used magnetic resonance pulses, blasts of targeted energy that shredded the planetary biosphere. Nothing lives there except bacteria and rust. Fyra's light dimmed further. She withdrew the limb. I am sorry, Isla softened her voice. I did not mean to be harsh. The Ryle pulsed once. A forgiveness tone, she understood. She always understood. The bridge door hissed open. A human officer turned from her console, her gray hair cropped close to her scalp. Captain, incoming transmission from the Darkweave station. A trader requests a meeting. Put it through. The screen flickered and resolved into a figure. The being was tall and narrow, built like something pulled too long in a kiln. His translucent skin swirled with faint shadow currents. He tilted his head slowly, regarding Isla with the patient curiosity of a bird examining a food source. Captain Voss, his voice resonated like gravel shaken in a metal drum. I am Zorvan. I control passage through this border region. Isla kept her face still. We are refugees. We seek safe passage to unclaimed space beyond the rift. Safe passage is expensive. Zorvan's head tilted further. I offer it in exchange for a technological curiosity, something your fleet carries, something your engines feed on. Isla's thumb stopped tapping. She knew. The Darkweave knew about the reactor. They had read its signature from the bleed of dimensional energy. They had tasted the power. We have nothing of value, she said. Zorvan's expression did not change, but something shifted in the shadows beneath his skin. A current quickening. You are lying. You are not practiced at it. Your pulse elevated. Your thumb stopped moving. You are afraid I will ask for something you cannot give. Silence stretched across the bridge. What are you asking for? Access to your energy source. I will send a technician to inspect it. If it interests me, we negotiate. If it does not, you continue on your way, unharmed. His message ended with a timestamp and a threat. Failure to attend will be interpreted as hostility. The free systems do not tolerate trespassers. The orange orb pulsed. Once, twice. A slow rhythm that matched nothing in Zorvan's chest. He stood at the center of his trading chamber. He watched the human woman step through the opening in the rippling wall. The walls of his chamber were like oil on water. They shifted with unseen currents, reflecting the visitor's form in distorted fragments. Her face stretched sideways. Her hands became long blades. The orange light caught the scar on her cheek and made it glow like a fresh wound. Zorvan did not offer a seat. There were none. Only the smooth black floor, the pulsing orb, and 2 guards. They stood at the edges of the room like statues carved from shadow. The human stopped 3 paces from him. Her gray eyes moved across the chamber once. Cataloging exits, threats, angles. She stood with her weight balanced, her arms loose. She had not brought a weapon. He had scanned her. Nothing. She was either very brave or very foolish. "You may cross Darkweave territory," Zorvan began. His voice was a low rasp like stone dragging across stone. "In exchange for the energy source you carry." The human's expression did not change. Her thumb tapped against her thigh, 4 beats steady. "What do you intend to do with it?" she asked. Zorvan tilted his head, slowly, too slowly. He knew his own tells but could not stop them. The tilt was a pause for calculation. "A curiosity," he answered, "for my collection." She did not blink, no. The word landed like a closed door. Zorvan felt its weight settle in the space between them. "I cannot accept that answer," he said. "The void reactor powers life support for 8,000 people," she stated. Each word was measured, each one carrying the same flat weight. "Without it, we die." 8,000 lives. Zorvan let the number hang in the air. A significant cost for refusal. He reached into the folds of his robe. The human tensed. Her weight shifted forward. Interesting, she would fight. Zorvan withdrew a small disk of black metal, faint blue light tracing circuits across its surface. He held it out. "A standard Darkweave reactor," he offered. "Lesser output, sufficient for life support, you will not die." The human looked at the disk. She did not take it. "Our systems are modified. Standard reactors cannot sustain them." "Then modify them again." "We have 63 days of food. We do not have time for retrofitting." Zorvan felt something colder than irritation. This human was not negotiating. She was stating facts as if they were walls. "Refusal is a declaration of territorial dispute," he warned. The human's thumb stopped tapping. The orange pulse filled the silence. 1 beat, 2. "Then we are in dispute," she said. She turned, she walked toward the opening in the wall without a backward glance. The rippling surface reflected her back to him in fragments. The opening sealed. She was gone. Zorvan stood in the center of his chamber. He spoke in his own language, the words sharp and clipped. He had expected her to trade. Every species traded. Lives for passage, passage for power. That was the equation. The human had not followed the pattern. She was not afraid of him. That was the detail that would not settle. He had scanned her. No fear pheromones, no elevated heart rate visible in the vessels of her neck. She had stood in his chamber, surrounded by his power, and said no. He did not know what to do with that. He spoke again, the words softer this time. "Prepare the station weapons." The guards flowed through the wall like shadows through water. Zorvan remained. He had asked for an energy source. He had been given a refusal. He would learn what that refusal cost. As Isla's shuttle departed, red lights flickered along the station's hull. The station was powering its weapons. Alarms chirped in overlapping rhythms across the bridge of Hope's anchor. Emergency lighting cast long red shadows on the consoles. Through the forward viewport, Isla Voss watched the Darkweave attack craft slide into formation. 12 ships, maybe more behind them. Plasma bolts streaked across the black, bright as miniature suns. The first volley struck the shields. The deck lurched under Isla's feet. A low groan ran through the hull, metal flexed under stress. The shields held, but the void reactor readout flickered. The frequency drift graph spiked past the safety threshold and kept climbing. Leo's voice cut through the noise. "The recalibration is not complete. I need 10 more minutes." His hands were steady on the console, but his face was pale. Isla gave the order. "Evasive pattern Delta, keep us moving." The helmsman acknowledged. Hope's anchor rolled hard to starboard. The attack craft split into 2 groups, one high and one low. Plasma fire raked the port side. The impact threw Isla against her chair's restraint harness. The lights flickered and died for a full second. Then the emergency systems kicked back on. The sharp chemical smell of burnt insulation reached her nose. A secondary alarm started screaming, a higher tone than the others. Leo turned. "They hit the port barricade array. We lost 1 generator." A hard light barricade generator created a solid light wall for containing hull breaches. Losing 1 meant the 3 crew in that compartment were gone. Isla did not ask for confirmation. There was no time. Fyra's silver body brightened. The Ryle pulsed with rapid light, her internal glow strobing like a panicked heartbeat. She extended a pseudopod toward Isla. The touch was cold and urgent. Then the images came. Isla saw a dim sun and a gray world orbiting it. Ruined cities, but beneath them, tunnels. A shielded complex with power still running. There might be a refuge there. Coordinates appeared. A star system on the edge of explored space, the Ryle homeworld. A secret colony, Phyra sent. Hidden when the Mammoth came, I did not know if it survived, but the coordinates are real. Another plasma volley struck the aft section. The deck pitched. The void reactor let out a sound Isla had never heard before, a deep whine that climbed in pitch and vibrated in her teeth. "We are jumping to the Ryle system," she announced. Leo looked up, his knuckles white on the console edge. "Captain, the reactor is unstable. A jump will stress the containment field if it fails during transition. We have no choice." He held her gaze for 1 second. Then he turned back to his console, his fingers moving with quick, precise motions. The jump engines began charging. A low hum built beneath the deck plating. The Darkweave ships kept closing. Isla watched them on the tactical display. 20 seconds to jump, too long. The reactor whine rose higher, a thin sound pressing against her eardrums. 15 seconds. 10 seconds, the Darkweave ships fired a concentrated volley. The shields flashed. The energy graph spiked into the red zone. Something changed in the formation. One ship broke away, accelerating. It was not moving to attack, it was moving to intercept. She recognized the hull, Zorvan's ship. He was not trying to stop them, he was following. 5 seconds, the reactor screamed. The containment field indicator wobbled. The jump sequence locked. 3, 2, 1. The stars outside the viewport stretched into lines of white light. The universe twisted around them, then silence. The jump was over, the stars were still. The alarms had stopped. The reactor hummed at a steady, normal pitch. Isla let out a breath she had held for too long. She looked at the viewport. The system's star was a cold white dwarf. The Ryle homeworld hung in the middle distance, a dead ball of rock and frozen atmosphere. No lights, no signals, no life. Phyra projected an image of hope, faint and fragile. It is under the surface. It has to be. Then the void reactor warning light turned red. A new alarm began, low and steady, the kind of alarm that reports the end. Leo spoke without turning. "Containment field is cracking. We have maybe an hour before it fails completely." Isla stared at the dead star, at the dead world, at the red light that would not stop blinking. Behind them, beyond the jump point, Zorvan's ship was coming through. The bridge of the Obsidian breath hummed with the soft vibration of active scanners. Zorvan stood at the viewport, his narrow fingers pressed against the cool surface. Beyond the reinforced glass, the human fleet hung against the dead white dwarf. They looked like wounded things caught in a web. One ship bled atmosphere in a thin white trail. The flagship, Hope's anchor, showed energy fluctuations he could read from here. The void reactor pulsed unevenly, a heartbeat with a stutter. Vex approached. The first officer's inner currents swirled with visible anxiety. Blue light from the memory crystals reflected on Zorvan's face as he turned. "Orders, Trade Master." Vex's voice carried a faint hiss. "Wide-spectrum scan," Zorvan commanded. "The fourth planet. I want every fragment of data on the surface." Vex moved to the console. The scanning equipment hummed louder. The results appeared on the display. The planet's surface showed a debris field. Ruins of structures built from layered silicate were shattered across a gray plain. The Mammoth had been thorough. No energy signatures, no life signs, no colony. He had expected this. The Ryle were pacifists. They built no weapons and raised no shields. When the Mammoth came, they died. Zorvan opened the comm channel. The image of the human captain appeared. The scar on her cheek caught the emergency lighting. Her gray eyes were flat and empty. "Captain," Zorvan said, "I will make this offer one final time. Surrender the void reactor. I will tow your fleet to the nearest neutral station. You will live." Her jaw tightened. "No. You have no colony here. Your reactor is failing. Your ships are damaged. You have 63 days of food. The reality is likely less." "I said no." Zorvan let the silence stretch. He studied her face, no flicker of fear, no hesitation. She stared back with the same flat calm she had shown in his chamber. "You are sentencing 8,000 people to death," he stated. "I am refusing to trade their future for a few more months of survival," she replied. "The reactor stays, we find another way." The comm channel closed, her image vanished. Vex's breath hissed louder. "Trade Master, why do we not simply destroy them? We could take the reactor from the wreckage." Zorvan turned to his first officer. "The void reactor is a contained dimensional bleed. If we breach its housing, the micro-singularity will collapse. We lose the prize. Then we board them. And if they detonate it rather than surrender?" Vex fell silent. Zorvan returned his gaze to the viewport. The human flagship's energy fluctuations were worsening. The pulse of the void reactor was a visible rhythm that quickened and slowed without pattern. The engineers were losing control. He had never encountered a species like this. Every race in the free systems understood survival. The individual sacrificed for the group only when the group's survival was certain. These humans inverted that logic. Captain Isla Voss would not trade the reactor for her people's lives, but she would also not trade it for her own. "They do not value their own lives," he muttered. Vex looked up. "Trade master." "The captain, she has no leverage, she has no escape, she has only a refusal." "That is not rational," Vex's inner currents churned. "No," Zorvan agreed, "it is not." On the human flagship, a crack appeared on the hull near the engineering section. A thin line of dark light spilled from it, faint at first, then brighter. The containment field was bleeding. The human engineers were skilled, but their resources were scarce. They could not hold the field indefinitely. Captain Isla Voss had two choices: let the reactor collapse and die with her people, or eject it into the void and lose her only bargaining chip. Zorvan waited to see which she would choose. The crack on the hull split open. Heat pressed against Isla's skin from every direction. The engineering bay of Hope's anchor was a furnace, thick with the sharp bite of ozone. Steam hissed from a cracked coolant line. At the center of the room sat the void reactor, a sphere of absolute darkness 3 meters across. It pulsed with erratic black light, each throb sending a tremor through the deck plates. Leo knelt at a control panel 5 meters away. His leather jacket was tied around his waist, his undershirt dark with sweat. His fingers moved across a flickering diagnostic display, its screen a wall of red warnings. Isla stood behind him, her thumb tapping its steady 4-beat rhythm. Fyra stood to her left, the Ryle's silver body a dim amber. She extended a pseudopod and touched Isla's hand. The contact was cool. It vibrated with a low, steady frequency. Comfort. Leo turned, his face pale and streaked with grease. The frequency drift cracked the containment field. It's a hairline microfracture, but it's spreading. If the field fails completely, the singularity collapses. Everything within a kilometer goes with it. "How long?" Isla asked. 90 minutes, maybe less." Leo gestured to the 3 engineering crew against the far wall. They were wrapped in emergency blankets, their eyes hollow. One had a blood-soaked bandage on her forearm. Isla kept her voice flat. "Stop it." "I can't stop it," Leo said. "I can vent the entire dimensional bleed into space. Open the emergency port, dump the energy. It drains the reactor completely. No power, no collapse. And then we drift. Life support holds maybe 2 hours. After that, the cold gets us." Isla looked at the reactor. The black light pulsed again, stronger this time. The deck plates vibrated beneath her boots. "Alternatives." Leo shook his head. "None. I skipped the recalibration. This is my fault." "You were under attack," Isla countered. "You were keeping the shields up. That was not negligence." He did not answer. He turned back to the panel. Fyra's pseudopod tightened on Isla's hand. Images flooded her mind. The gray world, a network of crystalline towers in concentric circles humming with silver light. The Ryle planetary defense array. The image shifted. The towers stood dark, but something flickered deep within them, faint, residual. It might still have power, Fyra sent, dormant but present. Isla's mind raced. In her quarters sat a silver box the size of her palm, a crystal lens, a toggle switch, the psionic disruptor. It was designed to interfere with psionic activity, but the Ryle network was psionic. It ran on dimensional current. The same kind of energy bled from their reactor. She turned to Leo. "Get me the disruptor." He looked up, comprehension spread across his face. "You want to dump the bleed into the planetary grid, use the towers as a sink. Can you jury-rig it?" He was already standing, pulling on his jacket. "I need the disruptor, a connection to the emergency vent port, and 30 minutes. Then move." Leo ran, the minutes stretched. The heat grew worse. Isla stood near the door and watched the reactor pulse, each cycle faster. The black light flickered with a hungry rhythm. He burst back through the door, the silver disruptor box in one hand and a coil of wire in the other. He dropped to his knees at the emergency vent control panel and began stripping wire. "Talk to me," Isla demanded. "The disruptor's crystal draws dimensional energy. I can reverse the polarity and feed the energy out instead. If I patch it into the vent port, the reactor dumps into the crystal. The crystal broadcasts to the nearest compatible receiver. He did not look up. The towers, if they're still standing. How long, she asked. 20 minutes to link it. Then someone has to stay here and trigger the vent manually. The timing must be exact. Too early, the energy vaporizes this bay. Too late, the reactor collapses anyway. Isla nodded. I'll do it. Leo stopped moving. He turned, his eyes red from the heat. No, if I die, you find another engineer. If you die, 8,000 people scatter and starve. It's math, Captain. Then teach someone else. No time, he turned back to the panel. I skipped the recalibration. I caused this. I fix it. Isla opened her mouth to argue. The words did not come. She stood in the heat, watching the sweat drip from his brow. He was 26 years old. He wore a leather jacket he never removed. He was giving her his life. She did not realize she was crying until the tears mixed with the sweat on her cheeks. She reached out and placed her hand on his shoulder. He paused, looked up. She nodded once. He understood. He nodded back. She turned and walked to the door. She stopped at the threshold and looked back. Leo was bent over the panel. The reactor pulsed once, slower this time. The black light dimmed. You buy us time, Isla said. I'll buy you everything I have, Leo replied. She stepped through the door. It hissed shut behind her. The obsidian breath shuddered. Zorvan felt the vibration through the deck plates, a deep resonant groan that traveled up his narrow frame. He did not blink. His translucent skin swirled with faint shadow currents as he stared at the viewport. The blue beam was beautiful. It arced from the human flagship like a living thing, a column of light that bent and twisted as it descended toward the dead world's surface. Vex stood beside him. His mandibles clicked once, twice, a nervous rhythm. It is striking the surface, Vex said. The beam is not dissipating, it is being absorbed. Zorvan tilted his head. Show me the scan. The display beside the viewport came to life. Zorvan read the data in silence. The beam carried pure psionic energy. It bled into something below the ruins, a lattice of ancient conduits. They were woven through the planet's crust like veins. The network was Ryle. He had seen traces of Ryle architecture before. Amorphous, silent, patient. This was different. This network was not empty, it was dormant. The beam was waking it up. The satellites, Vex whispered. Zorvan saw them now. 16 defense platforms rose from the planet's shadow, cold metal tombs waiting for a spark. The psionic energy was that spark. Their engines ignited one by one, small blue flames in the void. Their weapon systems cycled with a low hum the ship's sensors picked up as a vibration. They were targeting the Darkweave formation. Evasive, Zorvan said. His voice did not rise. Vex hesitated. Where? Anywhere that is not here. The first satellite fired. A silent pulse of white energy lanced through the darkness. It struck the nearest Darkweave vessel, the Silent Ledger. The ship's shields flared once, then collapsed. The pulse punched through the hull, venting atmosphere and bodies in a single frozen spray. The Silent Ledger spun, its lights going out. A second pulse followed, a third. Zorvan watched his formation break apart as ships scattered. The satellites did not chase. They fired with mechanical precision. Each pulse found a target. Each target fell silent. They are hurting us, Vex noted, pushing us away from the planet. Zorvan saw it too. The human fleet had reoriented. Every ship angled toward the planet's far side. They were using the distraction, using the beam, using the dead crew member who had stayed behind. He opened a channel to the human flagship. Captain Isla Voss's face appeared on the screen. She was pale, her scar a white line against her skin. Her gray eyes were flat and cold. You are running, Zorvan stated. Yes. How did you activate the network? I didn't. Isla's gaze did not waver. Someone stayed behind to die so the rest could live. The words landed in Zorvan's mind like a stone dropped into still water. A single individual, choosing to remain on a dying ship, knowing the reactor would collapse, knowing the psionic bleed would kill them, for others, for the fleet. Zorvan could not compute it. The equation did not balance. In the free systems, survival was the only currency. Sacrifice without return was not a strategy, it was a malfunction. And yet the beam continued to burn. The satellites continued to fire. The human fleet slipped behind the planet's curve, one by one, vanishing from his sensors. I did not know, Zorvan said slowly, that your species had that capacity. Isla's expression did not change. We do not have a choice about it, it is what we are. He understood then. She was not boasting or threatening. She was stating a fact. Her species would sacrifice itself, not in desperation but as a deliberate choice. A calculation to place others above the self. That was not a resource. That was not a threat he could measure. That was a variable he could not control. Zorvan turned to Vex. Disengage. Vex's mandibles clicked. Commander, we have lost 3 ships. The humans are escaping. We can pursue. There is no profit in it. Zorvan silenced him with a raised hand. His voice was quiet, thoughtful. We are chasing a fleet that will sacrifice a part of itself to save the rest. How do you predict such beings? How do you trade with them? How do you fight them? Vex had no answer. They are not a territorial threat, Zorvan continued. They are something else. I have no interest in discovering what that something is. The bridge fell silent. The blue beam flickered twice, then died. The satellites powered down. Zorvan waited. A message arrived. Text only, 1 word. Thank you. He did not respond. His ledger had no entry for this. Vex shifted beside him. Commander, what do we tell the free systems? Zorvan stared at the dead world below. The beam was gone. The network was silent. The humans were gone. Tell them, he said slowly, that we encountered a species that does not follow the rules of trade. Tell them that we withdrew. He paused, his skin swirled with shadows he could not name. Tell them nothing else. The cold air hit Isla's lungs like a blade. It was thin and sharp. It carried no scent but rock. She stood on the surface of the moon with her hands shoved into her jacket pockets. She counted. 211 people stood in the twilight, clustered in small groups near the emergency shelters. Their breath plumed white in the dim glow of the dead star. Some leaned on each other. Others stared at the frozen ground. They were too exhausted to cry. Isla let out a long breath and watched it freeze. Fyra stood beside her, the Ryle's silver body gleaming against the gray landscape. Her internal lights pulsed with a warm, amber rhythm. She extended a pseudopod and wrapped it around Isla's wrist, a grounding point. I am still here, Fyra's telepathic impression layered over sound. We are still here. Isla nodded. She could not speak yet. Captain, a young engineer named Terran, walked toward her. His face was smudged with grease. He held a data pad. Fyra found something in the caves. You need to see this. Isla followed him. The cave mouth was a dark gash in the side of a low hill. Inside, the air was still and cold. The tunnel opened into a wide chamber. Isla stopped. The walls were covered in thousands of crystals. They pulsed with a soft blue light like a cluster of frozen stars. Fyra moved toward the nearest cluster and touched one with a pseudopod. An image flickered in the air above it. A star chart, dense with markings. A repository? Fyra's voice carried wonder. My people stored knowledge here, data on every star system within 100 light years. Isla stepped closer. The star chart rotated slowly. Most systems were marked red, dead, ruined, but one marker was green. Fyra touched another crystal. The image focused on a single system. A yellow star, 4 planets. The third one was highlighted. This world is habitable, Fyra said. Atmosphere is breathable. Water is present. No sentient life detected in the last 1,000 cycles. Isla stared at the green marker. A planet, a real planet. How far? 3 jumps by a standard FTL ship. But we have no FTL. The hope flickered. It did not die. Isla turned to Terran. Do we have any ship that can still fly? He scrolled through his data pad. The Swiftmaker is in one piece, a shuttle, small, no FTL drive, but the sublight engines are intact, enough fuel for about 2 months of continuous burn. 2 months, at sublight speeds, crossing the distance would take decades. We send the shuttle, Isla said. Terran blinked. Captain, it can make it there, but it will take almost 2 months. No relay, no way to send a message back. I know, we need eyes on the ground. If it is habitable, we build a way to get there. Terran nodded. I will prep the shuttle. He walked out of the cave. Isla stayed, watching the star chart pulse. Fyra moved closer. You are sending them into the dark, Fyra murmured. With no certainty they will return. I know. And if they do not find anything, then we try again. Isla turned to face the Ryle. We do not stop. We keep moving forward until there is nowhere left to go. The fleet prepared the Swiftmaker. 3 volunteers stepped forward. A pilot named Soren, a biologist named Alara, a mechanic named Jax. Isla spoke to them before they boarded. You are carrying our future. Every one of us is counting on you. Soren nodded. We will not let you down, Captain. They sealed the hatch. Isla and Fyra watched the shuttle power up. It lifted off in a cloud of dust. It climbed slowly, then accelerated, its engine flare a brief orange glow in the twilight, a single point of light moving against the endless dark. Isla watched until it vanished. She turned back to the survivors. They stood in small groups, their faces pale in the dim light. All of them looked at her. Isla took a breath. "We have work to do," she said. They salvaged the Ryle ruins. They repaired the damaged ships. They pulled parts from the dead ones to keep the living ones breathing. Days passed. The twilight never changed. The dead star hung in the sky like a frozen eye. Then the transmission came. It was faint, barely above the noise floor. It came from the wreckage of the Hope's anchor, still drifting in orbit above them. Isla was in the cave when Terran's data pad chirped. He looked at the screen, his eyes wide. "Captain, you need to hear this." He played the transmission. It was static at first. Then a voice, cracked, broken, barely audible. "Isla, can you hear me?" Isla's blood went cold. She knew that voice. "This is Lee. I'm in the forward section. Life support is damaged, but I have maybe an hour of air left. If anyone can hear this, please." The transmission cut out. Isla was already running.